Let's talk a little bit more about the questions facing the United States now with regard to Syria, the extreme sectarian violence targeting Christians about 30 miles north of Damascus. Al-Qaeda-linked rebels are targeting a Christian village in territory held by the regime. Government troops battling the rebels for a second day after fighters for the Jabhat al-Nusra group stormed a hotel atop a mountain overlooking the town. Our next guest has a first-hand breakdown of how Christians in Syria react to the violence. Syrians are a demographic mosaic that includes the Sunni majority, plus Christians, Druze, Alawites, and Kurds. And just like every other group in Syrian society, the Christians have a range of attitudes regarding what's happening. Some support the regime, others have refused to be drawn into the conflict, others are active members of the opposition. Our guest also says that up to 95% of Syrians, especially the Christians, believe violence is not the way to bring change to Syria. Joining us now, the only Syrian priest in the Church of England, Reverend Nadim Nassar, director and co-founder of the Awareness Foundation. Does that mean that you oppose any U.S. military strike on Syria?
I oppose any military strike anywhere in the world, John, because in the 80s I lived 7 years in the hell of the civil war in Lebanon. And I remember like yesterday when the battleship New Jersey came to the coast of Lebanon and bombed the mountains of Lebanon. Did that bring an end to the civil war in Lebanon? No. Every single Lebanese remembers that horrible night of New Jersey. And the strike was absolutely devastating. But the war continued. When did the war stop? When all the Lebanese went to the city of Ta'if in Saudi Arabia and sat around the table and found a way out of the conflict.
But what happens if Bashar al-Assad wins this civil war? What happens to the Christians? What happens to those who have opposed him in Syria?
I don't think the winner, whether the regime or the opposition, is going to be good for Syria at all. In the future. A change must take place in Syria, but not through violence. Most of the Syrians want to see change, the change to a true democratic election. Democracy, John, should not be always defined as the West sees it. Democracy is a system which should emerge from the country itself. It shouldn't be imposed on the country.
President Obama says he is convinced that Assad's forces launched that chemical weapons attack that killed 1,000, perhaps more people, innocent people, obviously, including women and children. Are you convinced? And does that deserve some kind of response of force?
I will ask you a question. The 200,000 people died or were killed during the conflict in the last 18 months. Are they the children of a lesser God than the people who were killed by a chemical weapon? Or if I'm killed by a tank or a bomb, my life is less value than if I was killed by a chemical gas. I mean, I ask these politicians whose rhetoric is absolutely nonsense. I will ask also President Obama, you got the Nobel Prize for Peace. Why don't you intervene in Syria without strikes and without military muscles, and try to muscle your brain and say, let's go and intervene in Syria politically, diplomatically, bring all the Syrians around the table and help them to find a way out of their conflict. Why nobody is talking about dialogue?
You bring us an interesting perspective from your home country, Reverend Nadim Nassar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.